Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Revival of America podcast. This is Jenny. I'm the owner and the host of the Revival of America. Today we have Derek Johnson, everybody in the house. He is back from his travels of event speaking. So I think Derek might have some good stuff for us today. And we have agreed to do a little bit of a Q&A about the last 45 minutes of the show. So please, everybody, if you have a question for Derek, please feel free to raise your hand at some point in this podcast. I will unmute your mic. If you can't speak, you can always write your question underneath his picture on the wall, and I will read the questions as well. Also, to everybody, please be careful who you listen to, who you follow, what you're putting into your mind. It's lunacy out there. I am just blown away. I just stepped out of a space right now and it's crazy. People are just out of their damn minds. But anyway, just be careful. I'm not joking, you guys. It's crazy, and your mind's a powerful tool. So if you're not powerful or you're not strong in the mind, be sure you get out of those spaces if you can't handle it. Don't listen to the noise, don't listen to the doom and gloom, red pill, all that stuff, because everybody, we are winning this war, and we are seeing a lot of confirmations and a lot of vindications for a lot of the stuff that many of us have been putting out there for so long. And Derek Johnson being one of them, I had given him kind of a pat on the back, give him a shout out, everybody, because he has been telling us. And again, I always say he's not reinvented the wheel. He is just rewriting what Trump has already done, just in more layman's terms and easier for us to read. Because not many people will go to the government websites and read the executive orders, much less many of the people haven't been reading, unfortunately, Derek's blueprint that he has done for us. Many of us have, many of us haven't. But everybody, if you get an opportunity tonight, or just give him a shout out, because he has been dragged through the mud quite a bit, and pretty much everything that he has been giving us, it's been spot on. So and that also goes for you guys too, everybody, because you guys are then sharing that information to your friends, family, and trying to help wake them up. So give you guys yourself a pat, give your guys yourself a pat on the back as well, because without you, none of us would be. No Derek Johnson would be without you. No Revival of America would be without you, and so on and so forth. So I personally want to say thank you to all of you for continuing the journey with us here, wanting to know the truth, participating, and giving us your time, because your time is valuable as well. And you guys come and spend that time with us, whether it be an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it may be. You guys are here asking the questions and just listening. So, again, thank you all for being here. Everybody, too, we are making a lot of positive noise over here at the Revival of America, as you know, because you come in here and you participate, and we are being listened to in over 100 countries. So, please go follow us on the podcast host or my social medias to get the latest updates on the podcast. And those are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Podbean, Riverside, Amazon Music. And the social medias are Jenny Jareed Facebook, at Jenny_Jareed X, at J Jareed Rumble, at J Jareed Instagram, at J Jareed True Social, the Revival of America right here on Telegram, the Revival of America YouTube, and then last but certainly not least, at the official J Jareed over on TikTok. So I'm just doing a little shorts over there because that's what TikTok is all about. So I'm trying to do better over there, guys. I think I'm doing a little better, but not much. But anyway, check that out. Also, all of them are verified, the social medias, so you guys know those are my legitimate accounts. The three that aren't are TikTok, True Social, and YouTube, because YouTube is new, but I'm still waiting for the verification notifications on those. And then everybody, for those of you that have a submission or that want to tell your story, get your voices heard, please email me at troasubmissions@yahoo.com. TROA stands for the Revival of America. If you guys want to have your stories heard, you as the people will tell your story. You can send me a little synopsis about your story in an email. I'll contact you, because we do vet these stories, everybody, because unfortunately, as we have the scammers, the trolls, the disruptors in all these chats, we do have those people trying to be fake individuals, unfortunately. And so we'll reach out to you and talk to you about your story. And then you will come on and tell your story that you want the world to hear. So don't be afraid, everybody, because remember, it's your voices, your stories that are going to help shape this new world that we're coming into. And then last but certainly not least, everybody, sign up for the newsletter. You'll get the weekly show lineups, the guests, the times, and then also the latest notifications on the podcast. And that is therevivalofamerica.com. So with that, everybody, Derek is in the house. We're going to welcome him back. It's been about a month since he's been with us. So and he's been traveling, as you guys know, as I just said, but he's going to give us some time to do some Q&A. So I want to welcome you, Derek. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. How are
So
you?
I'm good. Where are you at? Are you back home or are you still traveling?
I'm in I am near Boise, Idaho.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn, you're still there.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, well, that's awesome.
So,
That's where, I was established in Idaho. So yeah, I lived in Boise for a few years. A bunch of my family is up there. So yeah, it's a pretty cool little place. It's grown since I've been there, but how do you like it? It's different compared to Alabama, huh?
I don't know. The people are pretty cool here. It seems to be at least east the Eagle and Nampa, all those regions are very sweet, cool people. Everybody I've met. We had a big turnout that came when I spoke at the Old State Saloon on Tuesday night. It was a real big turnout. Um, the whole place was packed, and but cool thing was only a quarter of the people had heard me before. Three quarters were there. They had heard of me. They had never heard me speak, so that's kind of cool. So a lot of red pilling going on Tuesday night, and but yeah, it's. I mean, it's real windy here. Other than that, I'm kind of used to that being when I lived in Colorado and up near Wyoming. But other than that, it's really pretty here.
Yeah, it definitely is. Idaho's a pretty state for sure. And I did watch you, by the way, on your live last Tuesday. You did a great job. And I also want to tell you, Derek, I don't know if you got my post. I just kind of gave you a shout out for the confirmations and the validations that many of us are getting, but for a lot of the stuff that we've been saying, and you primarily are a big one to that I told everybody to give a shout out to you for, because you've really helped a lot of people. You've changed a lot of people's lives, and through the course of this, they've stuck with you, and just pretty much what you've been telling us is coming to fruition. So, and I think we've been seeing that, but I think now what we saw with Trump and his post on Sunday, I think that just maybe might make people feel a little bit more confident that, yeah, we're on target. So I just want to say, continue doing the great work that you're doing. I know I appreciate you. I know many of my audience does, and I know we get the naysayers and all that stuff, as you know. But you're doing a great job, Derek. Keep it up. I'm proud of you, and you deserve a huge congratulations. I know we're not over this yet, but I do want to recognize good hard work where it's due, and you definitely have done that for many of my audience as well as yours. So good job, Derek.
Oh well, I appreciate it. I think sometimes until people get to know me, my personality, I'm just always the guy that's still goes after the people that don't know. And and when I see, so what happened this week, people probably saw, but when people that I know personally who've had me on shows are misleading people, and they'll say, I don't know what that post meant. And I'm like, yeah, you do. You know exactly what that post means. You have someone who's been on your show who has a book that outlines that. Now, if you can't afford the book, that's cool. It's all free content on all of my accounts. So when I see stuff like that, I think that people, if they get to know my personality, but also the whole operation and the whole mission is to win as many people, not coerce or not persuade, but win people to see that, hey, this is our original, this is what our foundation looked like years and years ago. And we don't have to wear the wigs and be all stanky and not have air conditioning like they didn't have back then. So it's the same, it's the resetting of the foundation. We just get to witness it in our history and have technology and have all the cool things our founders didn't have. So I think that's if people realize it's not trying to get validation for myself, it's just showing people that, hey, this is what President Trump's doing. He's not firing off at the hip as he rolls. And, you know, that was a soft disclosure. Very, very soft, because you heard people saying, oh, it was a repost of a post. I'm like, if I took a post that Jenny posted and it said, you know, Alabama football sucks, and we're creating a new team here in Arizona that's going to whoop Alabama every year, and I reposted that, and you know I'm an Alabama football fan, well, you'd have to know that I believe what Jenny said. You'd be like, why would Derek post? Why would Derek post something that's going to go against his alma mater? So see, when Trump posted that, President Trump posted that, he wanted people to see that. And the Babylon Bee was way down in the bottom. That had nothing to do with it, even though it still had Q on it. But anyways, I think if people would get to know my personality and get to know me, they'd understand I'm not negative to the people that are haters and naysayers and all that. But you cannot say you're a President Trump supporter and be hating on people who are part of the mission. It's just, it don't work like that.
So let's talk about that, Derek. And yes, I agree with you. I know you're not doing this for validation. Many of us aren't. I know I'm not. I just knew something was wrong when they decided to lock us all down during, you know, that when all the COVID started. And I had been starting my awakening journey probably a couple of years prior to. But you know, it does. Your hard work deserves to be recognized. And I just want to tell you, I appreciate you, and I know many others do. So keep up the great work. You're killing it, my friend. But yes, let's talk about that real quickly. And I know you said we talked about a Q&A. So do you want to do it at the beginning of the show, or do you want to talk first and then we'll do it at the end of the show?
I'll just brief on a few things that I think are cool about that post, and then you know, just a real quick re-emphasis on where we are right now versus where we've been. But I won't.
Well, real quickly,
I won't take the 2 hours.
Oh, well, no, you're good. You're good. No, I've got 2 hours, so whatever. We'll go however it goes. But yeah, definitely some Q&A. Some people have been requesting it. But since you're talking about, you know, people changing, you know, like what you're talking about, President Trump's post, and then how people kind of change it. Oh, no, that's not true, whatever. Let's talk about that, because that is going on so much. And I tell my audience, you need to be careful who you listen to, who you follow, what you're putting in your mind. And I'm seeing a lot in all these places, whether it be Facebook, X, Telegram, whatever it is. But they're really quick to spin the narrative. So we saw it with the Trump situation about him, the question, I call it the scripted question that was asked about him pardoning Diddy. He never said he was going to, you know, and then people are switching this whole Stargate thing around and making it as if Trump is on that side, and just how they all spin the narrative, right? So can we talk about these fake MAGA supporter, or they call, like you say, they spew out that they're supporters of Trump, but you know, then they go out and spit out all this hate, right? And this division, this, you know, questioning him that he's a Zion, he's a Zionist, he's on this side, he's not, you know, he's not for us. Can you kind of, you know, touch a little bit on that? Because this is what I'm really seeing, and I'm trying to tell my audience they've got to stay out of that noise, because truly we are winning this war in the background.
Well, yeah, and here I was just telling a buddy out here, Mark, that owns the Old State Saloon. I said, look, you know, here's where people need to just dump the Zionist thing, period. Good, bad, or indifferent. Look, if you're not Jewish, shut up. That's the way I feel. Look, I'm not a Bible scholar. I'm not a theologian by any stretch of the margin. And I'm the wrong person to be talking to about the Bible. But at the same time, either we all can read the Bible and have our own interpretation, or we all need to be quiet and keep our interpretations to ourselves. Because there's so many people right now that's creating division everywhere with everything. Chaos, propaganda, drama, all of it, period. No matter, not just the Zionist thing. Like yesterday, I had 2 or 3 people that you know, have decent followings, not huge, but just enough. They were following me. They loved me until I called them out. But see, getting like into like Q, I don't bash Q, but I try to tell people until you have a solid foundation on what President Trump is working with, our founders established where we are today. Liberals, ironically, when President Trump posted what he posted Sunday, but also even like liberals in the 90s, they were hard against Bush and the Bushes, and they were, oh, it's a war for oil. They were closer to knowing what was going on then than what Republicans and some conservatives look like now. It's kind of like flip-flopped. Liberals right now, ironically, haven't even really been talking a whole lot about that post. The Republicans are the ones, and conservatives, quote unquote, are the ones who look atrocious all over X and Facebook, everywhere really. They look atrocious. And so it's like there's all these multiple people out there. You have groups who have been following me who, you know, they're like, well, what about this and what about that? And it's kind of like riding the fence back and forth, and they're just waiting for President Trump to say one big thing. Then he says it, then they question the man. And I'm like, okay, well, you're not a real President Trump supporter then, because look, I'm a ride or die with President Trump. I knew that when he first went down the escalator, and because of what he was saying. It was the things he was saying, and then when he said what my grandfather and my great uncle, who did not know each other, different sides of the family, had said about the generals, that's when I knew this is a unique what we're about to go into. And so that's why I joke with people about Q. I don't have anything against Q, but what I tell people is that Q1, the real Q, is a clearance. It's just a clearance from the Department of Energy. All right. And so the Q that everybody has been studying is great because it makes you think differently. It makes you think outside the box. It makes you think in a whole different kind of way, kind of shorthand in another way as well. But if Q was the end all do all, then they'd have told you all the laws and the orders that President Trump was putting into place, and then you wouldn't have needed me. And so see what happened when I blew up is because I took everything all at once. Some people have mentioned the executive orders here and there, but I took it all. I gave everybody that full, massive blueprint all at once in the chronological order of what a blueprint will look like. And saying, okay, I don't know what the command room looks like, and I don't know exactly what they're doing piece by piece in the sense of intricately, but here's the shell, here's your 40,000 foot view, here's the laws and the orders of what they're working with, and then as President Trump put them out. That's why I had the documents. But like one of those people yesterday, and I won't give them mention anymore after this, but still one of those people who fell off the ship tried to trash me. I'm like, well, why were you following me the whole time? Why were you friends with me the whole time? Why? That don't make any sense. So that means you were getting my information, right? And you wanted me on your show. That don't make sense. So when you look at those kind of people, they're on one day, off one day. That's not a foundation either. And so President Trump, you got to know what he's working with. Q is not what he's working with. Our founders established laws and orders. Our founders established the Revolutionary War. Military law came first. The first war articles came right after the Army was established. Then the Declaration. Then the Articles of Confederation, which was our first Constitution, which was still inside the war. Then the Constitution came 4 years after the war. All right. So when you look at the Constitution, it's just a framework to keep Congress in check. So if I hire Jenny to represent me, then she needs to go around saying exactly what I'm saying, not what Jenny wants to say. And that's what a representative is. So Congress is supposed to replicate what we, the people, want, because that's what the Declaration says. But see, the Constitution wouldn't have life or precedent without that Declaration. And when the liberals go out there saying, oh, the Constitution, no, that's not what you want to use as your foundation. The Constitution don't have anything to do with you and I and our rights and our privileges. That has nothing to do with that. That just keeps Congress in check. It's the Declaration of Independence that says, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations when government becomes destructive of these ends. What ends? You got to be able to identify the ends. Then you got to know what the ends is. You got to know what the destruction is. And see, the destruction is whatever goes against our what? Our foundation. So then you got to know what our foundation is, which means the Federalist Papers, which means all the literature of our founders. And what Congress has done through the years, Congress has gone against that. They have actually gone against that foundation. And they don't even talk about the foundation. They don't even talk about the Declaration. Most of them don't even, I've never heard a Democrat ever once say anything about the Declaration of Independence. So when you take that into consideration and you come to chaos and pandemonium and you got podcasters and mouths everywhere, you got to have a solid foundation. And that's where most people are getting frustrated, because you're listening to either too many people and too many mouths who have no clue what's going on. And most of them are just talking from perspectives. They're not talking from a foundation and a mission. So it's like when I talk about Q, I'm not bashing Q, but Q people have gotten mad at me before. And all I'm saying is that Q wouldn't exist without the military first. You wouldn't have a Q. You wouldn't have any clearances. You wouldn't have any of that. You wouldn't have anything. And see, I served in the military long before Q post ever dropped. I was already doing my master's degree in 2017. So, you'll hear people out there say, he's not an original OG. You don't know that. You don't know what I am, but I do know one thing. Anyone who is secret military, anyone who is in some kind of external, outside of the active duty military, and outside, anyone who's in a contractual position, anything like that, they're not going to sit there and tell you, especially if they're secret military. They're not going to tell you that. You've heard other podcasters out there go, oh, I'm military intel. You didn't hear me say that. No, that's not how that works. That's somebody just trying to sell you some butt cream and some other stuff. You need to stop watching these people, And so you got to have integrity. And so President Trump, if he was just doing this as a regular president, it wouldn't have looked like this either, because an outsider, one man, one outsider to walk in that deep swamp of bureaucrat doo-doo, there's no way he could have done it as an outsider, just as a regular president. But he also has to not look too much like he knows everything in another kind of manner, because of looking like a dictator. Because it is a military government. It is a military occupation, a continuity government, and the law shows that. So when you have an executive order showing a continuity government, that's when you got to know your foundations. So Eisenhower, Dwight D. Eisenhower, President Eisenhower, former president, but 5-star general, he established the continuity government and presidential emergency action documents. You can't have one without the other. They coincide. So when you have an executive order showing there is a continuity government, Executive Order 13961, December 7th, 2020, that they showed, quote unquote, Biden revoked portions of it, not all of it. That means it's still going, but portions on the very last full 24-hour day of a presidency, January the 19th, 2025. Well, if President Trump is a threat to democracy, if he's a dictator, if he's violating the Constitution and all these things you've heard, quote unquote Biden and quote unquote Kamala and quote unquote Obama and quote unquote Hillary, if all these people, he's a disgrace to the world and the world's laughing at us, he's a threat, he's a dictator, if that's the case, then why didn't they terminate every single freaking thing on January the 20th, 2021? President Trump just did it. Now, people say, well, you're saying that he revoked Biden. So, well, once you learn what a military government, continuity government, puppet government, once you learn what that is, then that part will make sense, that it wasn't really quote unquote Biden once you learn that portion. But for the people who don't know that yet, who think they witnessed quote unquote Biden, President Trump, just this past January 20th, Inauguration Day, he revoked over 100 or more executive orders by quote unquote Biden in one stroke of the pen. So how come, if he's a threat to democracy and all these other things, how come old Sleepy Joe couldn't do that on January the 20th, his January the 20th? So see, that's why you got to know what laws and orders are. And especially executive orders, they don't require legislation. Pen, paper, president. And so when you got to apply those things, and then you got to apply what portion you're in. If you already know, and most of you do in here, but if you know military government, military occupation, continuity government, all the things that coincide with that, if you find yourself wavering, then you got to get back on your foundation and go, okay, I know that is in law. I know these things happen. So President Trump, he's not, the thing I saw the most about the Post this week was, oh, he's trolling people. No, he's not trolling people. This is not a game. Men and women's lives are always on the line in the military, always. It's not a game. He's not trolling Biden. He's not trolling the Democrats. He's not trolling the liberals. It's not doing that. In order for President Trump to be exonerated, meaning nothing on his record with majority of the people, we don't need him exonerated. Republicans, conservatives, patriots, I don't need him exonerated. I've been with him from day one. I don't need him exonerated. So the exoneration part has to come for the haters, the people who hate him, loathing, making ridicules and mockery and all these things they've done, holding severed heads up. Those are the people that need him exonerated. So how do you do that? Well, you can't be mocking and trolling them. All this is rolling out, this soft disclosure. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Because he couldn't have done this as a regular president. There's no way. Anyone who still thinks that you just need God love you, it's the old Southern saying, God love you and God bless you, but you either need to quit and go home, or you just got to quit listening to all the mouths until you get a solid foundation on what President Trump is working with. There's no way he walked into that deep swamp, not just DC, but the global alliance that they had. There's no way he did this without a military. But see, when people hear military, you think of the traditional boots on the ground. And that's just not the case. It wasn't like that. It wasn't some invasion like that. So that's why you got to listen to President Trump. He's told you over and over, it's central casting, portions of it, and then he tells you the real invasion. He says, we've been invaded. He said, the gravest threats are not abroad, they're from within. So today he just posted that he had a military meeting. Our military is stronger than ever. Our stockpile of ammo is bigger than ever, but he said, we will never, you know that old saying, never say never? He said, we will never have to use them. So you've watched they clean out of the world. All those capitulations, when the liberals say he's a laughingstock of the world, they're the laughingstock because they don't even know what's going on right now by laws and orders. And they're the ones who used to be against war. They used to be against that. They used to be love and peace and all this other stuff. They're the ones still trying to prolong the Ukraine war, which is not a real war. So you just got to know that President Trump is working with laws and orders. And then you also have to know what those laws and orders are.
Hey, Derek, Derek, real quick, I don't mean to interrupt you, but are you somewhere your voice is echoing? Like it's like, I don't know if you're in a tunnel, but I hear this echo after your voice. Are you, I don't know. Are you somewhere where it's echoing? Can you hear that?
Well, I just took my ear pods out because I had ear pods on, so maybe.
Okay, well that sounds a little better. So go ahead. I apologize. You know I don't like to interrupt, but I had to tell you that.
Well, so you just have to know what he's working with, and I know it sounds repetitive, but the cool thing about me being repetitive is once you learn those laws and orders, especially your war orders, your Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, that order and all the things that fell into place in that timeline after that, that's the real key timeline. Once you learn that, then it's that old saying, you got it whipped. And so what Congress did for years I'll say this and then we can go another direction, but or questions and whatnot. But what Congress did for years was take everything on paper that's prescribed, PRESCRBED, prescribed by law. They've taken everything prescribed by law and brainwashed people that have been somewhat paying attention. But most Americans haven't. The other portion of Americans think you got to be a lawyer to know the law or a scholar to know the law, and or think you got to be some high-ranking, highly decorated veteran to know military. You don't. You know, you have to have a brain, and you got to have initiative, and you got to want to know this stuff. You got to kind of somewhat want to know. I don't read love stories. I don't go to the library and pick up a love book because I don't want to read a love book. If you want to know what's going on with President Trump, if you're here participating, but if you're new listening and you want to know, then you got to want to know, which means you got to want to know the language, the verbiage, the glossary, the index, the terminology. And then you got to pay attention to terminology. You got to listen to President Trump. He's very keen on present tense, past tense, your tenses, your words, your phrases. He's very keen on that. And law is too. That's why this is important. And so all those years, Congress, they tried to put limits on the president, such as 1973, when they amended the War Powers Act. So what President Trump's really done, they've taken all the tactics that the deep state used. So you had the CIA who could do all your different kinds of math and all your different holograms and your TV and your production and your theater and all that. You take all their stuff and you use it against them. Then you take all the tactics everywhere else, which we've always had special operations tactics. The guerrilla warfare was JFK's baby. So anybody who makes fun of special operations, you're making fun of JFK. So there's that. And that right there will piss off every Republican and conservative and patriot, because most people love them some JFK, as we should, and JFK Jr. All right, so JFK has a new feature of guerrilla warfare, his stance on guerrilla warfare in the 2023 Renaissance publication by the Special Operations Command. And guerrilla warfare is good as long as the good guys are in control of it. It's kind of like AI or anything else, the internet, etc. As long as good guys and gals are in control of it, it's good. All right. But when the bad guys get in control of it, it can be bad. So you got to know what Congress did all those years. And that's what Congress and bureaucrats and some presidents, but I also tell people, look, this is why it's important not to point fingers and judge people until you know. Now you can think that you don't like someone's character, personality, the way they carry themselves and whatnot, but you can absolutely not like someone and them still not be a bad person. And that's what's happened a lot with a lot of the people who've been reading Q. They get deep in Q, and they don't realize that some people can still be used as a pawn. You can call them a quote unquote hero, but they can still be used as a pawn. All right, they could still be taken out and replaced, but being used as a pawn because so many people are following them. When they have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 million followers and maybe more, you still can use them as a
Oh, did we lose you? Or did you get a phone call?
But you're going to be talking about you some Donald John Trump. All right, so there's that. So little things like that, you just have to know that special operations it has clandestine operations and covert operations, which are secretive and till they want you to know who the sponsor. Well, clandestine, you don't know who the sponsors are. Covert, you can know who they know who the sponsors are, but until they want the public to know those things, you're not going to know them yet. So that's why some of this has been a slow rollout. But look at that, and we'll twist it however you want to go. But look at that right there. Here's all this stuff taking place that you can know about. Most of you do, but the new ones listening, most of you can know what's going on if you'll read what I've put out there and others with me are putting out and standing on because we know what we know. And a lot of us have been in the military, some of us, and we know this. And it's just like breathing to us. All right. And it's not to you, but we're trying to get you hooked up to our oxygen tank. If you want to use some kind of illustration, here you go. Here's what I'm sniffing on. It ain't what Willie's sniffing on. I'm sniffing on pure oxygen. Here you go. Here you go. Get on this. It's some good stuff. All right. And so this is how the military operates, but this is how the special operations works. It's a little notch higher. Not your typical boots on the ground. It's not your typical everyday veteran talk. All right. And it's not your everyday talk as a civilian. So when you look at President Trump and the role he has to play, they can't rip the Band-Aid off. So what happened Sunday actually proved if you're a real patriot or not, for one reason. If you're a real patriot, then you've heard what I've heard the last 2 years. You've heard, well, when's President Trump going to validate you? When's President Trump going to say something? When's President Trump going to show something that'll validate your book or validate your information and blah, blah, blah? You heard that over and over. And then you also heard the people, well, why is it got to look this way? All the world's falling on everybody. Why is it got to look this way? And why would he make the economy go to hell? And blah, 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 blah. You heard all that. So you take both of those lines there and you roll around. President Trump gives a very, very soft disclosure with a repost of something that says that Biden has been whacked off at 2020, been wiped off the map. All right. And then guess what happens? Those same entities, those same layers of people, whichever one was in that category and or both, what did they do? Well, I don't know if that's the real President Trump. Oh, I don't know if that's it. Why would they? You heard that. Then you heard, well, it was a repost of a post. He didn't mean to post that. Same group of people. Same group of people. So see, you just found out who your bandwagon friends are and your bandwagon family members are. You just found out who your bandwagoners are, and maybe probably some of your podcasters out there. If any podcaster did that, you don't need to follow them anymore. There is an absolute blueprint in place. And see, that's what I go by. It's like laws and orders are not perspective. They're not perspective. And see, what no one has done yet, not one single person, especially my haters and the naysayers, not one single person has taken all these laws and orders and flipped them in a chronological blueprint and showed why they don't mean what they mean. Because they most certainly mean what they mean. And if they didn't, then why did quote unquote Biden continue 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies alone by President Trump? He also continued other executive orders, left them open, that were Obama's, like Yemen, all right, Yemen, and then Doge. Obama's one who established the digital service, not President Trump. He just renamed it. And quote unquote Biden funded in the American Family Rescue Plan Act of 2021, quote unquote Biden funded Doge in that. And then they portrayed to the American people that the Democrats had control of the House and the Senate from 2021 to 2023. So they have full Democrat everything. And they did not revoke one single war order by President Trump. They did not revoke or terminate the continuity of government. They did not revoke or terminate or let them automatically terminate 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies that are deporting illegal migrants, that are taking back the Panama Canal, that's freezing the assets of all the people funding the Chinese Communist military, which Joe Biden, as a senator, had his hands in a cookie jar for years with China. Why would they continue them? So see, you got to get a little assertive there, and you got to put an emphasis on that. When people hear me do that, they think I'm yelling. I'm like, no, you got to put an emphasis on that. Why would they do that? If President Trump is a threat to democracy and he's violating the Constitution and he's a dictator, why did they hand him a box with a giant red bow on it on January the 20th, 2025 and say, hey, we didn't terminate any of your war orders. We didn't terminate anything, but we're still going to call you a threat to democracy and a dictator. So just let you know. That's what you got to apply. That's how silly this is. That's how it's almost, I hate to say stupid, but that's how simple stupid it is to know that. So then you got to go back to and say, okay, either President Trump is a part of them, or your only or is he's a wartime supreme commander They've gutted the swamp. They've drained the swamp. The best is yet to come. Nothing can stop what's coming. All these things that everybody, same group of people who chanted that are the same ones who questioned his post on Sunday. Imagine that. So you find out that old saying, like you find out who your friends are. We just found out who the patriots are. We just found out who the readers are. We just found out who the studiers are. Because you got to slice the pie somewhere. And it's like my dad always says, all right, now you're splitting hairs. So no splitting hairs. There's a line in the sand. Which one do you take? It's either President Trump is the outsider who went in there with a military, he installed a military government, but he cannot look like a dictator. So when they ask him stuff like Diddy and all those things, he'll look like he'll say, well, I haven't looked at that. I don't know. No. He knows what's going on, but he has to look a certain way. And he can't look like a dictator. He can't rip the Band-Aid off, though, either, because here's what will happen. If he ripped the Band-Aid off and, okay, let's say Biden's gone, Hillary's gone, Obama's gone. If they just dumped all that on the people out there, the liberals right now would still call him a dictator, and they would call him they'd call him Hitler. All right, they call him everything beyond even a dictator, and he would never be exonerated. We would never flip this country. We'd never win this country. We'd never have this country where it needs to be if they did that. Some of you would like it. Some people would like it, but that's not the point and the goal of this. The goal was to win as many people over to the way that our foundation is supposed to be, to rid the federal government of them going in our taxes and our properties and our lives, race, religion, politics, everything. The federal government's never supposed to look like it's looked. So how do you flip that? How do you get that on a solid basis? And how do you get a quell to all the talking heads out there and the screaming and the hating and the pointing the fingers and the ridiculing and the name calling? How do you quell that? You got to keep winning. And what does he tell you? We're going to win so much you're going to get tired of winning. People, how can people get tired of winning when they can't even take one post from the president on Sunday that really leads to the justice? Most of these people yell, "We want justice." He puts out a soft disclosure about Biden, and the same people who yell, "We want justice," can't even handle the guy that they claim to support putting a post out that leads to the justice.
And this is what I tell my audience, Derek, is those people that you're seeing doing that, the more they talk, the more they open their mouths, the more they expose themselves, because I'm seeing a lot of this over on X. So Derek is right. He's spot on, everybody. You got to pay attention, because a lot of people are starting to expose themselves just by opening their mouths and talking too much. So I'm right there with you. Derek.
Well, what you do is just like anything else. Military goes by rank, and it goes by command structure and a command. So all I'm doing is acting as if I am still in the military in a rank that is receiving what President Trump's doing and then applying it. And you don't look at tomorrow. Tomorrow's not here. The Bible even tells you don't look at tomorrow. Tomorrow has its own cares and worries. Today is where you are. And so a lot of people are trying to get ahead, and life still goes on. I'm watching right now. I'm watching people sprinklers all over their yards, and they got horses and they have cows and they have livelihoods. Your life still goes on, and so many people are wanting the end. That what's going to happen is you're going to end up missing out on so much great life in between. If you believe President Trump when he says we're going to win so much that you're going to get tired of winning, then you can't believe anything else. You can't go Debbie Downer and go, oh, well, the judges are trying to do this. And no, if you knew what's going on by laws and orders, his laws and orders specifically that outline a military government, that military government will answer all those questions for you. Once you learn the military government, continuity government, puppet government, government exile, once you learn all those, and see what President Trump and what they're doing, they're running an occupation on our own nation. And see, that's where I was talking a while ago about the 73 Powers Act. That was Congress trying to put limitations on the president where he could only declare a national emergency to use the military. So they were putting limitations on him. So what President Trump did was basically, and I'm going to use my only slang word of today if I can, but he said, I'll whoop your ass with our National Guard and our reserves. So he used their own War Powers Act against them. And they used everything the way it's supposed to be, though. See, when President Eisenhower established the Presidential Emergency Action Documents and the Continuity of Government, because they coincide, they go hand in hand. Can't have one without the other. All right, so when President Eisenhower established that, it was for a president to use if in a defense mode. And President Trump has alluded to this. This is why I tell people, listen to the man you claim to support. Listen to him. He just said recently he nominated someone. He said, this guy, he's pretty good. He's pretty good at defense. He's good at defense. He probably would have been pretty good at offense too, but he's a defense guy. You got to listen to what he's saying. He also said not long ago about the Bushes. He didn't say their names, but he said about these wars we've been fighting. He said, why didn't we take the oil? Well, the liberals were yelling in the 90s that the Bushes were all about oil, oil, oil. And then he said, we didn't take the oil. Wow, that's a massive can of worms right there. Because what he's saying is we, the United States of America, didn't benefit from the oil. He's saying the Bushes did. So that's why you got to listen to him. And you got to listen to context, and you got to listen to tenses. You got to listen to the terms he's using and how he's using them. Because that was huge. So offensively, see, he can't rip the Band-Aid off either, because here's what'll happen. All the veterans out there, the few that have attacked me, they're only attacking me because I'm saying what he won't say and can't say. Because these wars, Korea, offensive. Vietnam, offensive. Iraq, offensive. Afghanistan, offensive. All these nations have been man-made bureaucracy, money, wars. And any veteran who don't want to talk about that right now, if you feel that I'm attacking your service, you're wrong. I'm not attacking your call to action, your call to serve. I'm saying the bureaucracy that put us there. And our foreign and domestic, you got to know the oath. When Abraham Lincoln, when they established foreign and domestic, the foreign was added for invasion of our nation by any foreign. It didn't mean foreigner like a Chinese or a Vietnamese. It meant anyone that was a foreign actor against our establishment, what we are as we the people, the Declaration. You have to know these things. And that's why so many, not a lot, but there's a few veterans looking atrocious right now. And I love my brothers and sisters in arms, but you got to get this stuff correct. You have to know the origin. And so President Trump's been alluding to this a lot, but he can't rip the Band-Aid off, because then if he does that, then he can't reset everything that they got in Supreme Court dockets. You've heard, those of you who've heard me break down the March 19th, 2024 Supreme Court docket case. That's going to open a massive can of worms on Obama, Bush, and Hillary, with Afghanistan and Iraq, with Osama bin Laden and Gaddafi. It's all there. So see, these things are coming. They're going to come. But you got to give it time, because you may be awake, and that's great. But look at all the other people out there. But look at the ones, again, the Republicans and conservatives, who most of them didn't even get on True Social. A lot of the President Trump's voters, when he told everybody, hey, I'm leaving Twitter and I'm established, not many went over to True Social. Not as many that still on his X account, old school Twitter. So look at all the people who don't follow him there. So little things like that can show you. And so look at all the ones questioning him. So when you look at the ones who question him, who you thought was one of us, then you got to go, yeah, no wonder we got to crawl like a snail through this, because we got to baby the babies out there. And that's all you can say. I mean, you just have to call a spade sometimes, and that's where we are. And you've witnessed that. And so there shouldn't be any more questions for me about why did it look like this, and why is it got to take like that? When are we going to see something? You saw something. And majority of the people question the man they claim to support.
Well, and you've got right now, and I'll put it on the board. Uh, Ian Carroll and Candace Owens out there going hard in a negative way on Trump. So again, be careful who you follow, everybody. All right, Derek, do you want to go into questions, or do you want to touch on anything else before we do that?
Well, the biggest thing to remember too is that, you know, um, I don't believe veterans are better than civilians. So civilians out there, when I say, you know, certain things, but you can know what you can know no matter what you are if you have initiative and everything. So that's why your discernment will come with what you're reading. And if you love President Trump, you have to follow what he's using, and he's using laws and orders and due process. They got to reset everything the way it's never been before, and well, at least in all of our lifetimes. It's never been the way it's supposed to be in all of our lifetimes. Everyone listening, breathing. So what you've witnessed from 2017 to 2021 was the legislative branch resetting Article 1. Then from 2021 to 2025, you watch Article 2, the executive branch being reset. And right now, January the 20th, 2025, the present day, it's judge this, judge that, judge this, judge did this, judge did that, judge panel did this, judge did this, judge did. Why didn't they do that with quote unquote Biden? So there's two ways to split that hair, and you can split hairs there because there's two different parts. There's two parts to it. So you could say, well, and it would be true, you'd say, well, majority of those judges were appointed by Obama, Clinton, Bush, and Bush Sr. So there's that. And then the other side to it is the whole fact that President Trump is resetting the judicial branch with the due process that's due to anybody on whatever level of a court there is. So those quote unquote judges, right, on either side of the line you want to talk about, why didn't they quote unquote go after Biden with the tariffs? President Trump put those tariffs into place in 2018. And he told you in the debate with quote unquote Biden this go around, he told everybody, he said, oh, and by the way, did you notice he never removed my tariffs because they were bringing in so much money? So from 2021 to 2025, none of the tariffs were removed. Not a single judge did anything during that time period. So you could look and go, well, because they were either this, but no, in reality, it's because of military government. That's why I've been joking. It's almost as if there wasn't a president from that time, because there wasn't. And then when you go apply Executive Order 13961, December the 7th, 2020, that was the invocation of a continuity government. Then 3 days later, the Executive Order 13963. You got to pay attention. Here's an example of tenses, all right, and words and terminology. Executive Order 13963 is the most recent, but it's also the last order of succession within the Department of Defense, which is very key because that's your military. That's your military as a whole. That's your military command as a whole. So if the most recent and the last executive order within the Department of Defense is President Trump's, and it was 3 days after a continuity government invocation in executive order that quote unquote Biden did not partially revoke until January the 19th, 2025. So they let a continuity government run from December the 7th to January the 19th, 2025, 2020 to 2025. So see, when you apply that Executive Order 13963 also answers everything. Every other president has had an order of succession within the Department of Defense except for quote unquote Joe. And it applies to your military, which applies to your military government. Then 3 weeks later, January the 1st, 2021, you had the publication come out with FEMA and DHS under the Federal Continuity Directive 1 and Federal Continuity Directive 2, which are your umbrella publications. This is a publication under those. It's called Reconstitution of the Executive Branch. Reconstitution means to set something back to its original state. So they're telling you that the executive branch was not in its original state. So when you go back, look from 2017 to 2021 at all the laws and orders that were invoked, especially under Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 150, that clause in there where it says the first 180 days and every 180 days thereafter, all those key executive orders that were leading to your military government, your legislative part, though, your suspension clause, your suspension of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2. It's not the president who suspends the Constitution. It's the legislative branch. So when you look at 2017 to 2021, and then you look at that very end there, right before you're going into 2021, those two executive orders invoking a continuity government, and then you have this publication saying, hey, reconstitution of the executive branch, then they're painting a picture of what 2021 and 2025 was going to be. Executive branch resetting. And that's why you saw the three cannons, two different set of cannons shown on January the 20th, 2021, first time ever. And the three cannons at Arlington for quote unquote Biden were the only cannons shown all day long for Biden. That is a funeral. So everything that happened that day, the soldiers didn't salute. There wasn't a commissioned officer at the cannons. Army Regulation 600-25-2-3 cannon salutes. That's straight up Army regulations. All right, and all the other things that took place. He raised his right hand at the wrong time, 11:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Violation of your 20th Amendment of the Constitution. So all these things took place on January 20th. They were showing you nothing if you saw it then, and or if you heard me in 2022 rehashing all that, the stuff that people didn't see, didn't notice, then you have all your answers that we moved into resetting of the executive. Now you're watching the resetting of the judicial branch, Article 3. And our founders established them in that order for a reason. The legislative branch writes the laws. The executive branch enforces those laws, and the judicial's just there if there's a discrepancy of that law. They weren't ever supposed to be the ones who write the law, persuade the law, coerce the law, and take over. And that's why Marbury versus Madison 1803 is very important. That's why it's also very important to know the Constitution is the highest law in the land. All right, but you got to go back to the original Constitution. You got to go back to the foundation, the founders, the Federalist Papers, etc. You got to know that. Thank God for President Donald John Trump. Thank God for all the generals that know that origin. Thank God they're still living. Thank God we're going to have a resetting, and thank God for people like me. I'm not the only one, but thank God I had a grandfather. Thank God I had a dad. Thank God I had great uncles who knew that original foundation. And that's what they're working with. And that's what they're resetting. And so all this judge stuff, well, then you got to go back and say, well, why didn't the judges do anything with the tariffs from 2021 to 2025? And then you got to know that tariffs are presidential authority. Congress gave that to the president. All right. So you have your 62 Trade Act and your 74 Trade Act. You got to go read those as well. But the president, and even though legislation in Congress has nothing to do with it, just to add on, just for tickles and fancies, quote unquote, Joe was shown to have House control and Senate control, Democrat control from 2021 to 2023. Why didn't they remove the tariffs? If there's such a threat, look at all the headline articles. Look at the articles, the ones that are out there putting stuff. If it's such a threat, and if nations are pissed everywhere, then why didn't quote unquote Biden and the House and the Democrat House and the Senate, but the whole 2021 to 2025, quote unquote Biden, Harris, and all the Republicans who thought Obama was in the background with some strings, why didn't they remove the tariffs? So see, all you got to do is get a little excited, show a little assertiveness and expression with your friends and family out there. It's real simple. But then that's when you come in with your cap, like your globe, and you cap them and you say, well, the cap here is your military government, your continuity government, special operations. It's all in special operations. It's all in history. It's all before the bureaucracy took over. That's why Eisenhower's speech is so important about the military industrial complex and the medical. He also talked about the medical. didn't like where medical was going because of money. And then JFK, and the rest is history. Then it just went a snowball headed for hell after that. So that's what you've been witnessing and watching. But you got to think, okay, you got to listen to President Trump. You're going to win so much, you're going to get tired of winning. Well, you're not tired of winning yet because you haven't won a whole lot yet. And that's because they haven't displayed all the wins yet. They're starting to, but they ain't displayed all of the wins. So you got to either believe that President Trump, or you need to just fall off the wagon completely and don't even be in any of this. Just pick up knitting or crocheting or golf or hiking or something. I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just meaning that what you're doing is you're draining your energy, and your energy should be where mine is. Your positivity should be where mine is. Your excitement should be where mine is. Because I told my mother in 2016, I said, when I get scared, you can get scared. But it's not going to be a scary thing. This is a resetting. It's where it was always supposed to be. And it was going to be a little bumpy, sure, because people are not going to know what to expect because they can't even name the 3 branches of government. So see, I always go back to the go-to things is that you got to know how this stuff operates and functions. And once you know that and you see what President Trump has done, not just him, all President Trump did was say, yes, you can use my name, you can use my face, you can use my image, you can use my brand, and I'll put my name on it. President Trump didn't sign, let me say this, he didn't write all those executive orders. He didn't write all these proclamations. He didn't come up with all of this stuff. He's putting his name on it, and he's saying, yes, I will take the heat. I will take the punches. I will take the ridicule, the mockery. But he knew the beginning, the middle, and he knows the end. And so if you love him, you got to know that. And if you love him, you got to support all of him. He don't need you, even if he never knows about you, but just think of it as if he does. Just pretend that President Trump has a camera on you at all times and pretend that he knows how you feel and be gung-ho about him all the time. But the way you do that is you learn the laws and orders in place. And that's how you stay positive all the time. And that's how you know you're going to win so much you're going to get tired of winning. So that's my take.
Amen. Amen. Well, we've got a few hands here that I haven't raised, everybody. So if you guys have questions for Derek, now is the time, everybody, because Derek, he typically comes and does a presentation, and throughout his presentation, he answers a lot of your questions. But raise your hand or write your question.
I got to go out of the room real quick and come back in because you're at a volume where you're coming through like if we were talking on the phone, it's not coming out on the speaker. So I think I got to come back in and reset it.
Go out and come back in, and then where you see the microphone, there's a little speaker. You got to hit that little speaker phone. Did you see that? Do you see that? All right, guys. So if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand. And Derek's here. So can you hear me better?
Now it's working.
Okay, cool. All right. So let's see. Tina Barnett, I've unmuted your mic. Go ahead and ask Derek your question. Go ahead, Tina Barnett.
Hi, Derek. I have
No. Hold on. Not you, Tina. Not there's another Tina before you, and there's other people before you, Tina.
Oh,
so hang
I'm
on.
sorry. I just saw you undo my
Okay.
button. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Not yet. Okay, hang on. I'll call on you in a second. So Tina Barnett, if you're still here, your mic is unmuted. Otherwise, I'm going to go on to the next person. Okay. All right. Denise Drago, your mic is unmuted. Go ahead. Go ahead, Denise Drago. Are you still here? All right. Chip Cherry, your mic is unmuted. Go ahead.
Hey, Derek. How you doing?
Well, I can't complain, and if I did, you wouldn't listen. So that's
No, I'd probably fucking listen.
All
No,
right.
but anyway, my thing, I guess my question, I don't really have a question. I was listening to you and I'm a Donald Trump fan. I voted for Donald Trump all 3 times. I think this thing has been going on. I'm not 100% sure how long it's been going on, but I think we're in like year 9. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say for sure.
Okay, so I just here's my question, and this is something to just spitball, but I consider myself awake. I learn something every day. Um, I think there's probably maybe 25 to 30% of people awake in this country, and if that, um, I don't necessarily think I don't think they worry about how it's going to come across to people, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be so much better. Like, people nowadays, I'm 50 years old. So in today's world and all this social media bullshit, excuse my language, but I've been on it more watching this than I have in years. So in ever probably. So I'm an anti-social media person. I think people are keyboard warriors. Um, Toughest guy in the world comes up on social media and you bark at him at home and he'll bitch up and hide under his mother's leg. But but I guess my point to this, where I was going, I started rambling. I apologize, but I don't believe that there's some people that will never be able to handle this, and I think if we believe in the Sarah Gessera, if we believe in all that stuff, that's going to be what opens people up to where they'll view it. I think the EBS, if we believe in the 10 days of darkness and the way they give out, I mean, the media, that question to P. Diddy about P. Diddy is irrelevant. He hasn't even been tried yet. I mean, the pardon, I mean, if he's innocent, there's no pardon. Not guilty, which I believe he's guilty as hell and he's a piece of crap, but that's the media. Our media has brainwashed us so long, and it's years down the road. I just I guess I really don't have a question. I was just going to say, can you piggyback off that? Because I don't really think that at any point some people will be able to handle it. I think there's about 60% that will, and I think as long as we get to the world where we have no Federal Reserve, we're not getting screwed over left and right. The taxes, the 16th Amendment wasn't even completely ratified correctly. If you're not paying tax like we used to, that should open people's minds up. So I think those actions help more than him tweeting that Biden is dead. That's just how I feel about it. And I'll be
Oh yeah.
quiet.
Thank you,
Oh
Chip.
yeah. No. Well, no. You have several great points. First thing I want to allude to is when you said, I learn something new every day myself. That's what I tell people. You can't ever. I mean, I focus in on the special operations military first, and then hop over to the federal, how they pair. But I mean, you can just. Last night I was digging on irregular warfare, some stuff that people can read, and I mean, I got like probably 10 or 12 new links that everybody can read, and it's going to take people forever if they read per se. So you can always learn something new. Um, all the kernels that I know that when we just recently, I'm still waiting on that link. I apologize to people, but I don't know what happened, but they delayed putting out the podcast I recently did where I brought a brand new person on. He's 79 years old. He don't mind me telling his age. He'll be 80 in August. Brand new to podcast, but he's not brand new to the Department of Defense and the military. He's a retired lieutenant colonel from the Army. But that question was posed kind of to all of us, and like everybody kind of agrees that maybe 10, 15, 20% of people. But then again, I mean, I can see what you're talking about. I mean, it just depends on the people still who's willing to admit it internally or even externally. And a lot of people we won't know because we can't know everybody. But yeah, I mean, when you're not paying taxes anymore, and certain things are eliminated from your life and all that, then yeah, people are gonna, they're gonna see something. I mean, you can't. Here's the thing: is if you start whining and complaining about, oh, where did my taxes go? Then you be. I mean, that would be humorous, and I don't see that ever happening. That would be someone who really needs to be checked into an asylum if they question where did the taxes go and they want them back. So when people say, oh, everything that President Trump's done can be undone in executive orders. I'm like, oh, so you just think about unveiling no taxes, and then think about putting taxes back on people once they haven't had it. That'd be something. But yeah, I could see people. But that was just soft disclosure. I mean, President Trump, that was just one little thing. But he's also did last week. He did the video that Hillary doesn't want you to see, and all roads lead to Obama. And he's been retruthing things about the Nuremberg and all the Gitmo and all the different things. So nothing can stop what's coming. So if he just reposted nothing can stop what's coming, then that tells you what's coming hasn't come yet. So see, there's a lot of ways to do that, but you're correct on that. I mean, I hope everybody does wake up. I mean, that's the whole point of this whole thing is to, eliminate this hate, eliminate all these people whining and complaining, and like you said, the keyboard warriors that they talk big talk, but I have yet to see one come to my face and say anything because. Again, it's like I tell them, you can cuss, yell, fight me, fist fight me. The laws and orders are still there. So, but I appreciate your commentary and your point because you make a good one. And for everybody out there, you can always learn something new. So I hope I don't come across. I do know what I know and I stay focused on what I know, but I'm learning stuff. I learn new stuff every day.
Thank you, Derek. All right. Thank you, Chip Cherry. All right, Earl, your mic is unmuted. Go ahead and ask Derek your question. Earl Howe, go ahead.
Thank you, Jenny.
Of course.
Derek, I'm from the old school where you went to a 2-room schoolhouse. You sit and waited to eat because the elders eat at the table first, and then the kids, and then the women. I remember reading in my history book about the Panama Canal and the tariffs. You don't see that in books today. I go on and I love Eisenhower, and he told us about the industrial complex. And I'm thankful that I was able to be around when he said that. I love Kennedy, and it broke my heart when he was assassinated. So I just want to thank you, sir.
Well, it's an honor, and thank you for that comment. And I don't want to ask your age, but you said my dad said the same. My dad was 21. Let's see, he was 21 years old in the Air Force, and he remembers when the sirens went off on base on lockdown. Everybody get back, and then went into lockdown, and that's when the news broke about Kennedy. So, and you're gonna have people who still believe what they believe, and that's all right. But history. Thank God for men like my grandfather, and I give credit to all my elders. I think that's what's missing in this nation. I think that the young people have put aside elders as if they don't know anything, and I learn something every time I talk to someone who's I learn something every time anybody's an elder, but I don't want to offend anybody in here, making y'all think you're old at 50 like Chip. But in your 70s and 80s, I mean, when you get to 70 and 80 and 90 years old and even 100, you've lived life, and you've seen quite a few things. And I think that families need to make that an emphasis again on the elders. It's not outcast your elders, because they do know a little something about life, no matter what it is.
Yeah, I'm only 74. I'm just compared to the ages you were talking about, but I still remember seeing history being made, and I'm thankful for that.
Yes, sir. Well,
thank you very much, sir.
Glad you're here. Glad you're here, because some people have been passing at young ages. So I hope you have a lot more.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Earl, for being here, my friend. It's always good to see you. All right, Stephen, your mic is unmuted. Go ahead, ask Derek your question. Go ahead, Stephen. Okay, all right. Tina, go ahead. Your turn. Where'd she go? She was here. Oh, go ahead, Tina. Go ahead.
First, I'd like to make a statement, and then I have a question for Derek. I'm a boomer. I'm 65, and the people around me, a lot of them are not awake, but they're MAGA, people. Like my sister, she loves Trump more than ever. And when this came out on Saturday with Biden, I called her Sunday morning and I said, "Now do you believe me?" And she's like, "Well, he says things just to stir things up." I said, "That's it. I'm done." So to me, the only thing that's going to wake up the remainders, and I'm not even saying the liberals, is either a come to Jesus moment or the military lets the news stations flip and let them make them, or it's time for them to start telling the truth. Because there's a lot of people that they work 9 to 5, they're not into this, but they come home and they put MSNBC or CNN, even Fox. I don't trust any of them. I don't even turn my TV on to the news anymore. But I think that's what's going to wake the rest up. There's nothing else that we can do. I've been trying for 5 years now, 4.5 years, almost 5 years. My supermarket thinks I'm crazy. Costco thinks I'm crazy. All the girls in there, they all think I'm crazy. So that's all I wanted to say about that. And the other thing I was going to ask you, Derek, I know the educational system is going to change for the good. I'm so excited about that, even though I don't have any, kids in school anymore. But hopefully someday when my son has children, they'll really learn about the history. And what I wanted to ask you is, do you think your book is going to make it into? I have both books. Not in. I didn't start reading the second one yet. It's twice as big as the first one. But do you think your books will be segregated into these schools in the history classes? Because if not, I think everybody should petition for it that's read the book and make it a must read in history class. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And I'll, on the first, I'll talk about the laws and orders really quick of your, in a military government and a continuity government. I mean, when those are there, which they are, the good thing you have going there with the media is this was an operation. And I don't, again, some people get mad when I say this, and I'm going to say it. I don't care what General Flynn said. General Flynn has also been replaced. Good, bad, or indifferent, doesn't matter, and that's not the topic. But he's irrelevant in another kind of manner, meaning that it's an operation. And certain people couldn't be removed, and certain things, meaning completely, because some of them have big followings and they could be used for good or bad or whatever, but for, as a pawn, whatnot, but because they have followers and those people listen, then you still feed the people, because the people are what matters. The people who aren't part of this operation, who aren't in positions, etc. So the good thing about the operation, it most definitely is an operation. And then also Flynn, on a credit for him, he was a 5G warfare master of misinformation. All right, so his yes can mean no, and his no can mean yes. And a spy, and going in, like I tell people, don't knock people till you know, because you have to have people who get in and infiltrate, good people who infiltrate as well. You have to get in and get information. You got to see where things are running, where they're operating. You can't follow the money if you don't know the trail. And when President Trump said, follow the money, well, you can't follow the money if you don't know the trail and the operations of the money and the money trail. So you got to have people who get in and sometimes play roles and blend in. So the media has had to blend as well. They had to roll on just like it was nothing, like everything else. That's why I told people from the start that first heard me, look, quit following the media until you have your foundation, and the foundation is the laws and the orders of the military government, the continuity government, because that's all in laws and orders. It can't be without laws and orders. And so you have to know that. And when you know that, there's this cool little thing there that you can go read. 47 United States Code, Section 606. It's actually titled War Powers of the President. Is what the title is. The president can control radio, TV, and internet broadcasts. So he can control the narrative. And it's kind of cool now when you go to Google and that AI is there, you type in, 47 U.S. code, it'll give you a brief description and it'll tell you that the president can control those things. All right. Now, it's not the war that you thought it was. Most people, like your sister and people, God love them, God bless them, but that when they hear war, they think of your traditional boots on the ground, which was never supposed to look like that. And so President Trump's doing everything by that book, by that standard, and the media is playing that role. And the media will do certain things. They'll replicate certain things just because they got to keep certain things. But yeah, I do believe the media, they're going to have to flip because one, SCOTUS ruled that President Trump can use the 1798 Aliens Act. Well, what's cool about that, I listen to terminology. Now, if I were going to be devil's advocate or what do you want to call it, and I may be wrong, and that's fine. I'm subject to be wrong because I'm human for one. And but the SCOTUS ruled President Trump can use the 1798 Aliens Act. Well, in 1799, leading into 1800, the Congress, they eliminated a portion of that Aliens Act because the original said the 1798 Aliens and the Seditions Act. Well, in 1799, they removed the seditions part. But to me, I'm an origin guy, and President Trump's an origin guy. So when SCOTUS ruled that, they didn't specify this, but I'm just saying that what President Trump would have to do, and everything, to flip this whole nation, he's told everybody that whom. He said the three-letter agencies weaponized against everybody, and who? The media. Well, in order to flip that, they have to be punished somehow. Well, everybody's seen CNN, their ratings are down. MSNBC, as he calls them MSDNC, all right, their ratings just massively plummeted, all right? And a lot of that was inflated in another way. It was like it was made people think that they had more than they actually did. And then sponsors and money, which also goes into what I'm talking about in country music. It sounds completely unrelated, but it's completely related. They make all these numbers look bigger than what they are. They make all these big artists in the top 10 look bigger than what they are, and they're not. All right. And so it is related. So when you get back to CNN and MSNBC and all them, in order to flip the narrative, in order to get real journalism back, in order to get the seditions part talked about this in 1798, which would be our founders. And they punished people who wrote things against the government. Well, when the government's cleaned out, as Chip and I are relating about, when the government's cleaned out and everybody can see that, then we should have a pure system of writers writing about good things and things that are going great and this. So I believe and I know that they'll be punished somehow, some way, that way. And CNN's a product of being punished already. They've already moved out of Atlanta. They're in Atlanta, but they're out of their big building. They're in a tiny little cubicle somewhere. And they still obviously have their little email followers, but they've been punished the way they're supposed to, and all the others will be. And then getting to the Department of Education, like Chip also alluded to, it's like, here's how you also get people. President Trump's already said he's going to do it. He said any school that does not teach our history, they will be removed of their funding. That when you take people's money away, well, it's like when you take a pacifier away from a child, they start crying. Well, that's the polar opposite in one way. You're going to give that back real fast, but it also shows you your action. So when you take money from somebody, they're going to get in step, as the military says, they're going to get in step. They're going to be marching to the beat of a new drum when that money gets pulled from them. And let's see how you function without any funding. So I don't know if my books will be added, and I've heard the members of President Trump that love me. Matter of fact, one was texting me today. They're going to do, I don't know what it's going to be, a video. There's something that's going to be done to get to more masses on the majority out there that's not following the intricacies. It would be an honor, but I haven't heard anything like that. But I just, my whole thing is I love President Trump like I love my dad and my grandpa. I mean, I've been around him and I can feel that. I wish everybody could, and I wish everybody could have known my grandfathers, and I wish everybody could have known my great uncles. But a lot of you have family members like that. So you kind of, especially you Southerners, you know what I'm talking about, or especially big family people, you know what I'm talking about. But President Trump is that to me. I look at him that way, and he acts that way, and he's got that attitude of that generation, which, they're go-getters, they're workers, and they know how the nation's supposed to function, what it's supposed to look like, but they also know how to make it happen. And all I wanted my books to do was to honor President Trump and what he did, but also all the men and women who may never have their faces known, that put their neck on the line as well with the military, the generals, and also special operations and how those guys and gals function on a daily. And I know a lot of them still in and talk on a daily basis with them. So it was more of an honor book that way, but it would be an honor for that to happen, but have no idea.
We'll soon find out, everybody. I do think many of the people that speak out and give the great information, right, the truth. I think there's going to be a very special place for many of us here in the very near future. So I do believe that that is definitely a possibility, Derek. All right, so let's see. We've got Love Warrior. Go ahead. Your mic is unmuted. Ask Derek your question. Go ahead, Love Warrior. All right, I'm moving on, everybody. If you guys request a mic and you guys don't stand up, I got to move on because there are several hands. So after that, we've got, let's see, Chris. Go ahead. Your mic, you still here? Chris, go ahead. Your mic is unmuted.
Okay, hey, can you hear me, Derek?
Yeah, I definitely can.
Okay, cool. I just wondered if you could maybe elaborate on or expand on a question I have. I think this is going to be the kicker, or in my opinion, when President Trump is exonerated by the people who hate him, and he's working with the laws and the orders that he's working with. Do you see a path with those? Is that what he's going to have to use in order to get the people that hate him to flip and love him? I know it sounds like a dumb question, but ultimately he's going to need to flip the narrative, and because this is for humanity, this is for everybody. It's not for any one side, left, right, up, down, whatever. Do you see with the laws and orders, because you're so good at explaining them and well versed at them, do you see him using those and how would he use those in order to get people to unite for a common cause, to get this nation reset back on its original foundation where it should be?
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. Well, no, you wouldn't use laws and orders necessarily like that, but I'll paint the picture real easy. So the laws and orders paint a picture of a military government and a continuity of government, meaning that is the operation. When you look at that 45-47, that is the operation. Now, I've made arguments and cases that by military law, not federal, but military first, and those presidential emergency action documents, and also your continuity government. I've made a case, and the colonels and others also agree on it, that I'm associated with. It could be, just saying it could be. It could be that the whole 45 and before the 2021, it could be a made case that the whole thing is an operation, meaning he was never president by constitutional standards in another kind of manner. And that manner has to be understood that people would have to understand what military law and military government does, military occupation,
Mhm.
meaning that it was still constitutional per se, but it was military. But if it wasn't, and 2021 to 2025 was your military government, even though we're still in the continuity of government portions, the way you flip that for those people, there's a lot of, and I hate putting child trafficking like an entity. I hate to even use that term for it. However, the child trafficking, children will be a big one, first off, because if a liberal or anybody for that matter, but evil, if an evil person or a bad person cannot, if a person cannot come to grips with that child trafficking is real and they want to make a mockery of that, then they're an evil person to me. They're bad. They're a reprobate mind. They can't be saved. And we wouldn't want that anyway from another manner. We want to watch that person because they might be so unwilling to participate. So child trafficking would be a big one. Children can unite people, most people. Money. Again, President Trump told everybody in 2016, I will unite the nation by the economy, because of what the economy does to people. And that's what most people pay attention to, is your livelihoods and how good that your livelihood is, like Chip and I were talking about eliminating taxes. Well, when we're talking about taxes that people didn't think could be eliminated, you eliminate that, that's going to await people. So there's a lot of variables that can await, but here's how you do it from the military standpoint of the military government. As I talk about, there's actors, not the central casting portions. I mean, those, yes, but there's some that took plea deals. All right. And there's some of those that might have been or look bad to you, and they may still be. All right. And they may still take a certain punishment elsewhere. Maybe, maybe it's federal prison for 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, whatever, but not execution. But you take a plea deal. You take all these people who played roles during this time. So when people have asked me, oh, well, does Congress know? Yes, they're in a continuity government. If you go look at the laws, yeah, they know. And what about their families? Yes, they know too. Well, why wouldn't some of their families talk? Because when it's explained to them and their families, here's what happens if you talk. Here's what happens if something goes wrong. And I believe that even Butler, PA was one of those situations that they caught on to before, and they went ahead and let it happen, not real, but they made the visual happen because it was a plea deal or something gone wrong, where you say, all right, if President Trump gets hurt or any of his family members gets hurt, your original deal goes back on you. So when you know that those things are real and they're also part of operations and special operations, warfare, then you also use the same kind of pawns and techniques with people who were traditionally against President Trump. Look at Elon. Now, he was never necessarily vocalized against President Trump, but he told you he was a liberal. He told you he voted for Obama. So you take a guy like that and look how many people he flipped. Don't look at the ones that started hating him on the left because they don't know the full entity yet, but look at the ones he flipped. Then you take whoever. Well, you take Tim Cook. He's a gay guy, ironically, from Mobile, Alabama, where I was born. But Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, he flipped. All right. Bezos, Amazon, flipped. Zuckerberg, Facebook, flipped. They flipped all these guys that most people, even Republicans, couldn't stand Zuckerberg. Right. So they flipped these guys. They all donated to President Trump for the inauguration. They flipped them. So they've won certain people over. And, Zuckerberg still kind of, he gets booed kind of like Goodell, the NFL commissioner. Every time he walks out for a trade or a draft, he gets booed every time. So there's some who may just still get booed, but they still played a certain role. So you take all these liberals. I don't know who they are yet, but I've told people, don't be surprised if it's someone like Obama. Don't be surprised if it's someone like a Hillary. Who knows? I'm just giving names. I don't think it's going to be those entities, but it's going to be someone big someone on the other side they're gonna start praising President Trump. That's what's gonna exonerate President Trump. It's gonna be to where all these big public figures who are on the left, that are the heroes to the left, the people who hate us no matter what right now, it's gonna be their heroes that start flipping. So when all of their heroes start dropping like dominoes for President Trump, that's how you exonerate President Trump. It won't be a Republican, and it can't be, because right, if it were, we could win people now, because look at me. That's what I've been stressing. I'm like, I'm not the most decorated veteran, no. And I know what I did in service. I'm not highly decorated. I'm not a war hero. I'm not a hero like that. But veterans, if a veteran can't go to someone and say, hey, look, all your gay and Buddhist and whatever you are, but put that aside for a moment. This is a military government. This is to save humanity. This is to save people. This is to save children. This is to save. If they can't listen to a veteran hit a neutral zone and not care what they are initially, now I'm not saying I condone it and support it from a global standpoint or a state or a national. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that put all of it aside for a moment. Let's get to the neutral, what's going on, and then see if you can come to my middle ground, which you should want to, because it's going to save humanity. It's also going to eliminate certain things. When liberals won't listen to a veteran, tell them that, hey, this is what's going on by law. And if you care about laws and orders and the Constitution that y'all use all the time, but you don't really know about, then it can't be a Republican. It can't be a conservative, and it can't be a patriot. So it's got to be on the other side. That's how you flip it.
Thank you, Derek. All right, Stephen, you have your mic open. You've requested a couple times. Do you have a question for Derek? Go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Stephen.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
sir.
Hey, I've been awake probably 40 years now, and I guess my biggest question is, do you have any idea, or can you give me some kind of surety that they're going to be getting rid of this chemical chemtrail spraying? Because I've been paying attention. Bees and birds and everything, and I haven't seen one bee yet this year. It's been the weather's been extremely cold when it shouldn't be, and constant gray out. I mean, it's just they're just constantly spraying poison over our heads. When is this going to end?
Well, that's a great question, and that's something that would be out of my wheelhouse as far as intricately knowing the exact. But I
mean,
know
this has been going on for a long time. You think that's be one of the first things they would have gotten rid of, seeing as how that we're in control, the military is in control, and everything's going on with what's going on. But they're constantly spraying this stuff, and it's actually causing chemical burns and everything else on trees. Trees aren't bearing fruit, and 80% of our bees here in Ohio are dead.
Well, I get what you're saying, but you
have any idea when they're going to clean that up? I mean, when
Stephen, hang on a second. You got to give Derek a chance to answer. So go ahead, Derek.
My thing is this, and I don't mean any offense, but when you say if the military is, the military is in control, and the laws and orders show that. However, here's my thing, and this is just me, and I've told this to everybody I know that talks about chemtrails, is this. I wouldn't be your go-to guy in the first place because of this one reason. Most people question me already with what I know, and how can I know what I know? So I make jokes. I'm like, well, who's going to be the person, meaning that all caps, THE, who's going to be the person that says, all right, ladies and gentlemen, all of you with the chemtrail questions, it's done. Now we're spraying certain things trying to help the earth, or that's like I tell people that the Air Force tried to address this in the late 90s, and no one believed the Air Force. And to me, if you can't believe, and of course, again, you can make an argument again that, well, the Air Force and the military of the Clinton era, and I mean, so you can always split a hair there. And that's one of those topics where it's kind of like also where I am right now. I'm visiting, but I'm in Idaho, and we saw one yesterday way off in the distance. But so far, I've seen quite a few aircraft here come over, and I don't see any other trails. But my point being is this: is you could still have a lone wolf actor who is putting something in that chemical to do it. And so is it something that's regulated with the states, and the states are absolutely violating federal or is it lone wolf actors here and there doing? So see, that's where, again, I'm not the expert on it, but it also goes to entail to show that, it's kind of like shooters. Everybody, the liberals want to blame the gun every time there's a shooting, but shootings aren't as often, but they're more prevalent than what they've ever been. And so chemtrails, same thing. I've seen them. I've seen the trails, but I've also seen haze too. I mean, look, I'm not a tree hugger, uh, but I've also made arguments before. I'm like, well, I'm not an engineer. I'm also not a chemist, but I wonder about all the where I'm from in the South, you have a lot of paper mills, and they got to put out all this stuff. And every time you drive by one, it smells, and it smells like, well, I won't say what it smells like, but it smells that way. And I'm like, well, is that good? Is that good for us to breathe? So there's a lot of things that I think need to be tackled in another manner. And I'm not a tree hugger, and I'm not one of those people out there, but I'm also not an expert in that field to know, is that okay to breathe? Is that natural output by the paper mills? Is that natural output by the aircraft? Is it natural output? And then is it being cleaned up federally? Is it being cleaned up statewide? I've heard a couple states have addressed this, but again, I mean, I have no idea. And look at the big turbine or whatever you call it out in Wyoming. Oh my Lord, I call them the Mercedes-Benz windmills. And President Trump, that's what he says. He says about the one of them. He talked about the blade. He said, you know what you'd have to do with one of those blades alone, and those things are everywhere. And when I was driving through Wyoming the other day, you had to have both hands on the wheel because the wind was so bad. They had all those on, and the sign said 40 miles per hour crosswinds. And I mean, you literally had to. I saw an 18. I thought it was going to flip. I've seen them flip out in Vegas in that region before, personally. And I thought this truck was going to flip because of the wind, 18-wheeler, that is, a big truck. So all those things are what President Trump also talks about. Those also have an effect on the weather, the cold, the hot, the rain, the way the clouds form. And they're pushing all that air at whatever speed they're doing. And they were calling that, quote unquote, the liberals call that, quote unquote, energy. So there's a lot of things that need to be tackled. And I'm still not the minded. That's where my brain doesn't operate and function like that. But I hadn't studied it either a whole lot. But I just know that I wouldn't be your go-to guy, period, on any part of it because, people have asked me and they still walk away believing what they believe. And I'm like, well, who's going to be your guy or gal that says it's cleaned out? And then are you going to believe them? And then how would you know or not? So it's one of those entities where it's like, it's got a big gray area of knowing, well, is it still natural? What if they're putting something good in there that's actually reversing what the bad they had done? So I don't know. It's a great question. And if
Bingo.
I get around someone around President Trump again, that knows that would know that, but I know some chemists, but I don't know who would know that directly. That's a big open-ended question.
We're soon going to find out. You gotta figure though too. They're going to have to do something with our skies because they got to clean up the skies, the air we breathe, the grounds that our foods grow in. So something has to. All that shit that they've been spraying on us for so long, something has to give. And you would think they would have to do something above that's good to bring it down into our air and into our soil to fix it. All right, thank you, Derek. All right, Don, your mic is unmuted. Go ahead. Go ahead, Don. Your mic is unmuted. You can go ahead and ask Derek a question. Okay. Miss Lori Masters, your mic is unmuted. Go ahead. Lori Masters, do you have a question for Derek?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello? Okay.
We-
Hey, Derek, you've talked many times about, I can't even remember what it was. I think it was meeting with heads of state before he was president about how they could have put the Logan Act on Trump as well as the 25th Amendment. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, on President
Okay,
Trump.
so I understand the Logan Act, but my friend read me the 25th Amendment. She's like, there's nothing in here that sounds anything like that. So I'm just super curious what that meant.
Well, they could bar President Trump from. They could have barred him from being president. Period. Just because of that. Because you got to know is you got to go back to that setting. There's rules and regulations, and I hate the word regulation. Period. But we'll just stick with rules. There's rules with the Federal Election Committee where he's not supposed to. Anybody, but now of course you can go right in there and says you can start campaigning once you declare that you're going to be a candidate. But in President Trump's case, that would have been a breach of national security if Joe Biden would have been a sitting president. So that's even bigger than just anything else. So they could have barred him from being president again by invoking a lot of things, even the 14th. And of course, the 14th Amendment, you got to go read all the updated portions of the amendment. Like the 14th Amendment is one of the weirdest amendments because it has so many different things in it. And when the liberals were quoting, chanting the 14th Amendment as well, you got to go read the little tiny portion of the 14th that they were, were using. So I just used those amendments that they were yelling that they wanted to use. But all of it again goes back to it would have been a breach of national security if Joe Biden, no matter how bad he would have been, dumb, whatever, even crazy, and if they didn't seek to impeach him in a real case scenario, that would have been a breach of national security. It would have also been election interference of President Trump's Executive Order 13848 with a national emergency. So I'm saying is they could have invoked a lot of different things on him, but they didn't do it. But
but 25th Amendment has succession, vacancy, disability, and cabinet declaration of disability. I don't see how any of those apply. I was just curious what you meant by that.
Well, vacancy, and there's a few. It just depends on how they want to interpret that. The liberals, they'll spin a lot of things, but you can, they could have called President Trump crazy. They could have called him. They all said he needed impeachment because and they're doing it now. The liberals, not the big name ones, but the little name liberals are all saying that he's crazy and he's losing his mind and he's got dementia and he's doing this. And, they could have yelled, they could have used it and twisted it the way they wanted to. And then, some of these things have been left so open, which I'm an originalist. And so that's the other thing you got to go back to. I'm an originalist. I think that most everything after the 10th Amendment has been all fraudulent because most of those amendments were after Abraham Lincoln. So, when you look at when Canada went under the crown, July 1st, 1867, we followed suit in 71. So most all those are to me, because I'm an originalist of the original Constitution, all those are fraudulent to me. So no matter what they would have done with it, but that's what they were yelling, the 14th and the 25th. So I just used what they say against them, no matter what they want to spin with it.
Got it.
They would have tried to spin something, but they didn't. It's what's funny about it. It's like, okay, if Biden was president, and if Kamala, and if the Republican, Obama's back there, well, they would have used everything on President Trump to bar him and ban him. And then the Logan Act is funny. I know that wasn't your question, but while we're on it, what's hilarious about it is he's the one that President Trump said, and it was you, Biden, it was you, Joe, in the 2020 election. It was you who suggested the Logan Act on General Flynn. You told Biden that. I mean, you told Obama that. So what's funny is like if people thought Biden was president, here he would have been with a full power. He'd had a full magic wand. He wouldn't have been just a little vice president. He'd had a full magic wand. Why didn't he use the same Logan Act on President Trump and every other fraudulent thing they could have used, and they didn't? So, but they would have made something up with the succession and also the vacancy. And they would have had to say, oh, he's insane and he's crazy and he's this and, you know, he's abusing power and he's gone crazy. He's a madman. He's Hitler. And of course, they pretty much already said that, but they just didn't use that. And it's just that one, there's a few things that absolutely proves that President Trump never left. And that's one of the things that absolutely proves that he didn't, because if he was a dictator and violating the Constitution and a threat to all this stuff, they'd have used everything on him. And we couldn't have denied it. He met right with all these leaders right in front of our faces. So that shows you he was not, but he wasn't a president either. He was a supreme commander. So it's a military governor. And Eisenhower is known as that as well.
Thank you, Derek.
You just have to,
all right.
You just have to tell your friend that you know, when they leave a amendment broad like that, that, you know, that you got to use all their language against them.
Thank you, Derek. All right, Ms. Cal, you can go. And then I've got 2 other questions after that. So Ms. Cal, go ahead.
Hi. I just wondered if you could touch back on what you mentioned about General Flynn when you said they replaced him. Are you suggesting he was bad, or are you saying that they replaced him with a body double? Because I went and saw him twice, and I'm just wondering if I really saw the original General Flynn.
Well, I'm not going to get in whether he's good, bad, or that. Just
yeah.
But then I didn't serve under him, and I didn't serve with him. And there's people who serve, and I'm like, he could have been a good lieutenant. He could have been a good captain. He could have been a good colonel. He could have been a good general. But, you know, he has some stuff on him that, you know, but only President Trump and that level knows. And I don't get into all that. I do know some things, and I just don't talk about it. But because it would also point to some, it would just point to some active duty people.
Open up a can of worms.
It would open up a can of worms because they're active duty special operations. And so again, but you know, when I tell people replace, you know, the CIA has been doing this for years. First off, and you know, body doubles. President Trump everybody goes on my page. Oh, that's not the real Trump. And I'm like, first off, most of you have never been, not you, not asking the question, but the people saying that, most of you, most of these people saying that have never been around a Trump trash can. And so I'm like, why would they put the double at his private golf course? All right. That would defeat the purpose of even having a double, because you're not going to get shot at the golf course. Now, they tried to make it sound like there was an assassin at his golf course, but it was nothing like the portrayal of the other special operation in July. But excuse me, but like that double that people say I'm with, it's not a double, first off. And then the president I'm in the picture with, I've never been in the photo with the Orange Man. I've been around him, the one they call Orange Man. But I'm way taller than him. And then Hegseth, I'm way taller than Hegseth, and Hegseth's taller than him. And President Trump in the photo of me, and President Trump's 6'3", I'm right at 6'5", which is not much of a difference until you're standing around someone like Barron, who peers over me. But when you see that president that I'm in the photo with has never been photographed in public, not once. The one I've been in pictures with. He's in pictures with Ivanka and Laura and all them when they're at Trump Tower and with his grandkids, when he's real safe. That president that I'm in photos with has never been photographed in public. So there's that. Now let's get to Flynn. You know, I tell people all the time, and I practice what I preach. Don't point fingers at people, because you don't know if they're good or bad. You don't know what they're playing. And there could be, again, like I said, bad people playing a pawn, meaning that they still have followers and people are feeding to them. But most people let's just talk. Let me just flip it real fast. Let me just make the highlight here, make it lighter. George Strait, Tim McGraw, whoever. When people see them in part, because you've never been around them, you see them all the time on TV. But when you get around them, most of those guys can go incognito in public. Elvis couldn't, Michael Jackson couldn't, but some of these guys can. They can put on a ball cap and put on a hoodie and put on some shorts, because you've seen George Strait nothing but jeans and boots, buckle, boots, hat, long sleeve, guitar. George Strait can walk around people. I've seen him do it. He'll get in like these jumpsuits, that the old school 80s, the Reebok looking things, and that real baggy, and put on these little bitty glasses and a ball cap backwards and walk right by people, and no one would ever know it. And we're talking about George Strait, the king of country music. There's other country artists that I know that can do this. And so I say that meaning lightly, that you can look at someone all the time, but then, because you never touch and meet, and people meet me, they're like, dang, you are tall, and they're like, so it's like when you see me sitting all the time, when you actually meet me in person, most people are like, man, you look the same, yes, but and I do get recognized at places now when I go to restaurants. But again, some people don't. I've had people say, man, were you at such and such time, and blah, blah, blah. I was like, yep. And I'm like, dang it, I could have met you. I didn't know if it was you or not. Well, there's a prime example. So Flynn, I look at things, and I'm not knocking Flynn. So when I make these jokes, I'm not knocking Flynn. Let's just get this on the table. But the original Flynn looks like an alien head. You could put him next to E.T. and they look alike. Their eyes, and he's got a distinctive looking head sideways. And then most generals, and rightfully so, because generals, when they make general, even colonels, even a lieutenant colonel, most of them are weathered. They look mean, they look aggressive, but it's because they're badasses, they're hard asses. They've been through a lot of stuff. They don't smile a lot in the military. You don't meet many officers that are smiling. If you've never been in the military, you won't even know that. But most officers, you don't walk around, you're not grinning like Gomer Pyle, like they showed him on in the TV shows, and him in the military. It wasn't like that. So General Flynn, the original, he's got this hard look. The guy they're showing now, his skin is real fair. He's smiling, and he's got a debonair look. He looks nice. His hairline's different. His ears are different. His eye sockets are different. Every little thing's different. Now, I think they could have removed Flynn for good reasons, because of the doo-doo he got into in the Biden-Obama era. But I also know he was a spy. But it still depends. It just depends. And here's where I make my case. And I can make a dang solid good one. All right. You've heard Alex Jones say he was visited by the FBI, and they're trying to take his money, and they're taking him to court, and this, that, and other. Talking about the shootings. A lot of people talk about the shootings that have big podcasts. Why haven't they been hit up by the same people? Why didn't they get sued by the same? There's a lot of big platforms that's talked about these shootings not being real, talked about them being staged, and FBI and all these other things. All right. So look at Alex Jones. He's a great example. He's been replaced. People all of a sudden get mad, talking about, oh, he's been working out. Okay, let me tell you something. If you work out, you get on a workout program, and all of a sudden your nose gets fatter and your skull starts moving shape, you need to tell your trainer, hey, man, my head looked like this before. Why is it getting bigger? Why do I have more wrinkles? Like, why is my eye sockets changing? Why did my eye color change? Working out don't do that. All right. So when people do that, all they're doing is hurting themselves, because what they're showing is their allegiance to someone that they thought was good all this time. And it could be bad, but they could have been removed for good, as in a good way, meaning they were really being threatened, because that's why we have witness protection. So there's systems out there, and there's programs that we have that are designed for that. And Flynn had a good reason to go into a protection. Alex Jones had a reason to go into protection, good, bad, or indifferent. And I sit in the good, bad, or indifferent because I don't know them personally. However, you can look at them and tell they're not the same people if you'll use your brain and remove your feelings and your emotions, you can look at them and tell they're not the same people. And you don't age like that. Aging, you just don't age like that. And what's funny is people can see Biden's, the Republicans, the Patriots can see Biden don't look the same. So why is it that Patriots can't accept that maybe one of their heroes was replaced? Good, bad, or indifferent, doesn't matter. Just acknowledge this is not the same guy. Working out don't change your skull. It don't change your ears. It don't make your ears this. It don't make your working out don't do your skull, your nose. I'm talking about your bone structure. I'm not talking about like you can get older, sure, and your nose can get fatter as you get older, but not your bone structure. That's the portions I'm talking about, your skull. And so Flynn had a good reason, and I'll find out. I don't know the full details. I have half the details, and my half I don't tell because it's irrelevant. And because when you don't know the other half, and the other half is presidential and on a bigger level, then my portion don't matter. But you can look at them and tell they're different. And, that's how good they are. That's how good the CIA's been all these years. They've been doing this for years. They've been doing it a lot. And the doubles, Alan Jackson, country music singer, he has quite a few doubles. And I'll even tell a story just to make it light, because it sometimes sounds like I'm being defensible. But my mom had a best friend. She was in love with Alan Jackson. She was all about that Chattahoochee. She wanted her some Alan Jackson. She went to Biloxi, Mississippi to see Alan Jackson in concert. And about 1 a.m., she's down there playing slots. And she sees a cowboy hat. And she said, my God, it was Alan Jackson's look-alike. And he looked identical to him. And I happened to meet him one time in Nashville. And he looks identical to Alan Jackson. And she said, oh, my God, you're Alan Jackson. And he goes, well, ma'am, I have to be honest. I'm his double. And it was 1 a.m. It was when the double didn't matter then. The double had already done his job and got all the people stirred up. And Alan went into the hotel because he didn't want to be disturbed at that time. I know that sounds bad in one way, but may have been sick, could have been something like that. Well, it was like 1 a.m. and she said, it don't matter, baby. You'll do. Well, that's hilarious to me because it wasn't really Alan Jackson, but she's like, well, you look like him, baby. You'll do. So, and he looked just like him. I met him one time. Looked identical to him. And so, good, bad, or indifferent. Some people would even get mad about that. Some people would get mad that Alan Jackson had a deterrent to keep people from meeting the real. So see, people get mad about that. And that has nothing to do with politics. But, Flynn
we'll soon find out, right?
We will, because Flynn he's an intricate part of this because of what Obama and Biden and all that. But what I want people to make sure of this is that, and President Trump's not a person that just all about himself in the wrong way. But for us, President Trump is the feature, not Flynn. And people put too much emphasis on Flynn as if he's the only one who knows where these quote unquote bodies and all this stuff are buried. Don't kid yourself. Don't kid yourself for a minute that he's the only one who knows. President Trump told everybody, we have it all. We've caught them all. And I believe Flynn could be a part of that. But when he blocked me, it confused people. And I never tagged him on anything. Other people did. I never went at Flynn. I never did that. But because I can tell what he can tell, he separated himself, and that's all he did because people were tagging us and tagging this and tagging that. And so he can't tell what I tell. And if you'll notice on that show I did with Brad Wozny and General Paul Valalay, all right, we were on John Michael Chambers' show, and the general was asked a question, and he goes, well, I can't answer that. And I said, sir, if you don't mind, I don't mean to interrupt you, sir, with all due respect, but I can answer that. And he could have answered it in another way, but he's the general. He couldn't answer it because it would be a general saying it. But see, people still question me. How can old Derek know? He wasn't that big rank, high rank. So see, people still question me, and I do know everything from the military government standpoint and the laws and orders that make that. I don't know every intricate detail with Flynn and all the other stuff like that. I know some things I won't talk about, as we know. But see, people will still question me, and I'm sitting there with a general who's sitting there giving me a thumbs up, right? And he thumbs up when I answer the question. But why don't people take it like that? And see, here's the general. He's the oldest general to lead troops in the battle, 72 years old. Can you imagine a 72-year-old man in full battle rattle getting out there and saying, let's go, boys, let's go, men? I mean, so look at all the other generals, and that's what gets me, and not you. I'm not saying you, the one cow that asked. I'm just saying all the other people out there, they get so defensive over one general. And there's 4,600 retired generals. And you got McInerney out there and Paul Valalay and Norman Traversy. You got a lot of these generals speaking up and been saying what I'm saying in another kind of manner. Why aren't people listening to them? So see, they're just as big. They're 2- and 3-star generals. That's what gets me. And I just want all the generals to get the proper respect that they all deserve. And these men are in their 80s. Well, I don't know about Norman, how old he is, but I know the other two are in their 80s. I mean, they deserve even more respect. And that's just, but.
Amen.
Now you can meet me and pull on my skin. I tell everybody, come on, pull on me. Pull my ears. That's me slapping my real face. If that was plastic or anything else, it wouldn't sound like that. And I tell
Derek is
ladies,
real, everybody.
you can pull on my chest. You can pull on everywhere. You can grab my Wrangler rear end. It ain't much down there, but you can grab it.
Thank you for your question, Cal. All right, everybody. Derek is here. Derek, you're going to be back here in 2 weeks?
I plan on it this time. I mean, I have been traveling, and I didn't mean to not be here, but it's just I never
Well,
know
you know,
where I am.
You did let me know you're going to be doing some traveling dates. I just didn't know exactly when that was. So it worked out good because I think I might have been kind of settling in my move when you were supposed to come on. So it worked out great.
You have someone hosting you, and you don't want to feel like when someone hosts me at their house, I don't want to ever feel like I'm being rude or being standoffish or like that.
Well, yeah. So you better go because I'm sure you're at somebody's house right now.
Well, they actually left, so it was great. They just pulled back up. But they had been gone this whole time. But
perfect timing because I gotta go too. So with that, everybody, Derek will be here in 2 weeks. He's here, same time, same place. And Derek, God bless you. If you're traveling, driving, be safe when you come back. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
I will definitely be careful. I'll be in Nashville next, recording my new album June the 12th. So looking forward to that. Yeah.
Well, you ought to, if you can, you send me some snippets so I can give a little teaser to the audience. If you can. I know some people don't like to do that until it comes out, but if you can.
11 songs that I solo wrote, and I got to do one gospel song for my mom.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, keep me posted on that. And then again, safe travels, my friend. And again, thank you for all the work you're doing and keep up the great job. You're kicking ass, my friend. I'm proud of you.
Well, I appreciate it, and we're all kicking butt right now. We're all going to be right about something. We're all going to be wrong about something, but we're all going to get it right.
Amen. Take care, Derek. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon. Good night, everybody.
Sounds great.
Good night, Derek.
We'll see y'all.